Part 132. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1311. Chapter 1311. I'm here to rescue you. Are you here to kill me? Christina saw that Yu Lingfeng had a cold expression and seemed very difficult to approach, so she hid behind her parents and looked at Yu Lingfeng tremblingly. Her shoulders were shaking slightly because of fear, and she grabbed her mother. The hands on my shoulders were trembling involuntarily. If you are willing to cooperate, not only will I not kill you, but I will also save you. What do you want me to do? Can you rescue Justin? Yu Lingfeng nodded firmly. I don't know why, she obviously doesn't know this man at all, but looking at his appearance, Christina actually feels that she trusts him inexplicably. There is a mysterious magnetic field about this man, as if people are forced to obey his orders. When he stands there upright, he is like a noble king, looking down at his subjects. What are you going to do? I can testify for you, but they may not believe it. A girl first accused Jun Chennai of sexually assaulting her. After Jun Chennai was imprisoned, he appeared in court to testify that it was all false. The public was not that easy to pay the price. After all, the certified evidence was there, and Jun Chennai himself quickly confessed. Everything went so smoothly, but now the victim suddenly said that Jun Chennai was wronged and that she was not sexually assaulted. The public would not believe it. They believed that this was the powerful Jun family. In order to make Jun Chennai escape from prison and bribe or blackmail the victim. Don't rush to save him. Your dictation alone cannot clear his grievances, not to mention that it's not time to let Jun Chen escape yet. Yu Lingfeng said seriously, did you know that there is a woman named Fanyan? Hearing this name, Yu Lingfeng clearly felt that Christina's expression changed. She must know something. Yu Lingfeng frowned. Could it be that Jun De really arrested Fanyan and locked him up here? I met her once before. I heard them call her Fanyan. That woman was always cold and seemed very unapproachable. I heard them talk about it when they were chatting. It seemed that the woman named Fanyan would come to her after a while. You came here once, what are you doing with her? She's not locked up here. Yu Lingfeng did not answer Christina's question, but asked again. Christina shook her head, she is not locked up, she can come and go freely here. When was the last time you saw her? At that time, I had just been captured by Jun De. When he held my parents hostage and asked me to help him complete this plan, I met the woman named Fanyan once. I remember that she seemed to tell Jun De that she was going to kill someone. Yu Lingfeng narrowed his eyes, killing someone? Who else does Fanyan want to kill? What on earth is she doing now? Do you have anything else to ask? Christina asked cautiously. Yu Lingfeng recovered from his contemplation and looked at the panic expressions of Christina's family. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, trying to be a little friendly. There's nothing going on. I'll take you out of here. Christina's expression instantly became overjoyed, but it didn't take long for her to be happy, and she soon realized that this was impossible. This is not her first time here. She knows how difficult it is to get in and get out of this ghost place. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1312. Chapter 1312. Let's rescue you by the way. However, before Christina had time to raise her doubts, Yu Lingfeng had already walked towards her resolutely, with a dazzling luster in his dark eyes that would make people fall into despair at the first glance. Christina was so surprised by this man's appearance that she was speechless for a moment. Obviously this was not the first time they met, but every time she saw this man, Christina wanted to sigh at his handsomeness. The Creator is indeed unfair, and at the same time, he really shows his preference for the man in front of him, wishing he could give all the best things in the world to him. You hold hands and then grab my arm and I'll take you out of here. Yu Lingfeng's words were devoid of any emotion and even sounded like a command, and it was the kind of command that was hard to refuse. Christina followed the instructions in a daze. Christina's parents were always confused. They didn't know who the man in front of them was, and they didn't know if this man could really lead them out of this hellish place. But no matter what, they were still willing to try, although deep down in their hearts, they did not take this futile attempt seriously. There are iron walls here, and there are a large group of experts guarding the outside. It is extremely difficult to get out. Just the next second, when they were each complaining, Yu Lingfeng suddenly took them and went directly through the wall. When they followed Yu Lingfeng through the wall, the expressions on everyone's faces were dull, their eyes were wide open, and their mouths were opened as wide as possible. They once suspected that they were dreaming. Doesn't this kind of scene only appear in science fiction blockbusters? However, before they could recover from this shock, the next shock came over them. After they passed through the wall, they saw an exquisite and magnificent castle in front of them. Yes, it's a castle. Christina's parents exclaimed in surprise, "Oh, my God." Christina asked Yu Lingfeng directly, "What's going on? Just where? Are we still inside the Shadow Hunters?" Yu Lingfeng turned around and gave her a faint glance. "Obviously, we have come out. This is my home." As soon as Yu Lingfeng finished speaking, Grandpa Jun walked to the living room. At first glance, when he saw the group of people in front of him, Grandpa Jun thought it was because his eyes were dim. Then he rubbed his eyes and realized that it was true. In front of him was Yu Lingfeng and three foreigners, who looked like a family of three. "Yu Lingfeng? Why are you back so soon? Where are Xia Ying and 11 Ju? And they are Christina's family." Before Yu Lingfeng had time to answer, Qian Yanjiu also walked over in a daze, and after seeing the scene in front of him, he shouted, "Oh my God! Didn't you go to the hospital to see Rong Ci? How did you do it in such a short time? And why didn't 11 Ju and Xia Ying come back with you?" Yu Lingfeng received a series of questions one after another, and suddenly he didn't know where to start. Thinking that it would be too troublesome to explain, he simply summed it up in one sentence: "Jun De was not here, so I rescued them by the way. Xia Ying and 11 Ju are still on the way." The relaxed tone of Yu Lingfeng's words seemed more like he was talking about what he had eaten in the afternoon. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1313. Chapter 1313 disappeared into thin air. Qian Yanjiu's face was paralyzed, and his whole face drooped. What was this guy talking about? What does it mean to save them by the way? It's like I went to the vegetable market and bought some fruit on the way back. You must know that Qian Yanjiu took a group of Kincha masters there for several days last time. They tried various methods but failed to get in. Oh, by the way, it took them a long time just to find the Shadow Hunter headquarters. It took a day. And Yu Lingfeng had only been there for a few hours, and he also went to the hospital and just saved the person? Is this still a human being? Qian Yanjiu looked at Yu Lingfeng with a stern face and said coldly, "Since you are so powerful, why didn't you save it yourself last time? Also let a group of them waste several days. How come I didn't know that a group of you masters would fail?" Qian Yanjiu's face turned even darker. He shouldn't have asked this question. He was really being mean. He knew clearly that he would be harmed by Yu Lingfeng, but he still went to seek harm. Yu Lingfeng settled Christina's family, and Xia Ying and 11 Ju just returned. When Xia Ying returned home, she saw that Yu Lingfeng had arrived home safely. Her melancholy face suddenly took on color. Xia Ying ran directly into Yu Lingfeng's arms, and Yu Lingfeng also stretched out his arms. Welcome Xia Ying's hug. Xia Ying buried her head in Yu Lingfeng's chest, her voice filled with tears. I'm so worried about you, so afraid that something will happen to you. Yu Lingfeng's eyes were filled with affection. He stretched out his hand to rub Xia Ying's hair and comforted her in a soft voice. I'll be fine. Okay, don't be sad. Am I not standing here properly now? Xia Ying nodded, but she still couldn't control her emotions. She hugged Yu Lingfeng tightly and refused to let go. Xia Ying has noticed Yu Lingfeng's abnormality some time ago. His energy field is now so unstable that Xia Ying is afraid of what will happen to him. Yu Lingfeng is in such a bad state right now. Something will happen if he is not careful. This matter originally had nothing to do with Yu Lingfeng. He could have refused to help, but because Jun Chenai is Xia Ying's friend, so he chose to help. He was originally a person who disliked contact with humans, but for Xia Ying, he made changes again and crossed his own bottom line. Single dog Yanju watched from the side and looked sideways at 11 Ju beside him. Have your master and his wife always been so sticky? Zihu frowned and looked at Jian Yanjiu as if he didn't understand. Although Zihu's language skills were not necessarily very good, what did slimy mean? This adjective of Jian Yanjiu is too disgusting to use, right? Jian Yanjiu looked at 11 Ju's disgusted expression and thought that his mental activity was the same as his own, so he added, you also think they are disgusting, right? After finishing speaking, Jian Yanjiu shrugged his shoulders with disdain. Zihu's face darkened and he decided that it would be better not to leave this person. Jundi returned to the shadow hunters and saw that everyone's expressions were not normal and seemed to be particularly afraid of him. Jundi raised his eyebrows, feeling that something bad had happened. Sure enough, when someone asked, Christina and her family were missing. The locks were all good, and the guards didn't find anything unusual. So, their family just disappeared out of thin air? Adjust the camera. Jundi said with a cold face. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 1314. Chapter 1314 Superman. Jundi looked at the scenes captured by the camera lock on the screen with a dark face. When he saw the scene where Yu Lingfeng appeared in the cell out of thin air, Jundi's pupils dilated, and then he kept playing back and adjusting the time. I just wanted to capture how Yu Lingfeng appeared in the cell. But no matter how the time is adjusted or how much the speed is slowed down, the displayed result is the same. Yu Lingfeng appeared out of thin air without warning. Jundi was stunned. He knew that this man was extraordinary, but what he didn't know was that he was so powerful. What is his background? Immediately afterwards, when Jundi saw how Yu Lingfeng disappeared with Christina and her family, the veins on his face were already jumping with anger. Damn it, what kind of monster is he? Do you think this is filming a movie? At this time, someone knocked on the door, and Jundi said in a cold voice, come in. The man walked in and saw that Jundi's expression was not very good. The man's movements became extremely cautious, for fear that he would anger the already angry lion again. Boss, I investigated what you asked me to investigate last time. Explain. Yu Lingfeng's father, Yu Moliang, was most likely the arsonist in the fire at the Love Kindergarten. There is also Yu Lingfeng, who is inextricably linked to the disappearance of Mr. R. By the way, Wrong CI had been investigating he came, but for some reason, Wrong CI didn't report him even though there was evidence. Jundi narrowed his eyes and smiled playfully, what do you mean? Did he do it, or is he just a suspect? Also, are you sure that Yu Moliang and Yu Lingfeng will not is it the same person? Jundi had this idea when he saw Yu Moliang's photo for the first time. He always felt that these two people were the same person. An indescribable intuition, Jundi's intuition is always so sharp. This time, he also trusted his intuition. But, Yu Lingfeng looks, the wrong age. That man obviously didn't understand what Junde meant. Until Junde paused the picture on the screen and played it again, the man was stunned and kept muttering, "How is this possible? How is this possible? So, this person, no, he must not be a human being." When Junde said this, the corners of his mouth curled up and his eyes narrowed, revealing the dangerous aura of the machine. Then, what could he be? A super person? It's possible, you can investigate him again. All the scientists who knew Yu Moliang back then should go and visit him. Yes. When the man answered, his voice was still trembling. He had not yet recovered from the shock in the video, and even his legs were trembling. Rong Ci was in a coma in the hospital for 2 days, and Lan 11 took care of him every step of the way. People from the Jun family have been there several times, but Rong Ci still hasn't gotten any better, and the results of the heart rate monitor are still not optimistic. Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng had just finished visiting Rong Ci and were on their way back. Xia Ying tugged Yu Lingfeng's arm and asked him, "When do you plan to let Rong Ci wake up?" Yu Lingfeng looked sideways at Xia Ying, the corners of his mouth curved. "Rong Ci is always awake." Xia Ying opened her eyes in surprise. "What do you mean?" End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1315. Chapter 1315. Qian Yanjiu is missing. He is conscious, but he just can't wake up. Yu Lingfeng continued, "When the right time comes, Rong Ci will naturally wake up on his own." What is the right time? Xia Ying is even more confused. Yu Lingfeng said a few days ago that when Rong Ci wakes up depends on when he wakes him up, but now it has become like Rong Ci wakes up whenever he wants. Already. Zioba knows. Yu Lingfeng suddenly smiled slyly, charming everyone. Xia Ying has been completely involved. What does it have to do with Zioba? Last time you gave Rong Ci to Xiao Ba, I did a little bit of processing on it. When the time comes, Xiao Ba will wake up Rong Ci. Xia Ying frowned and said in confusion, "But Zioba is just a little goo insect. Does it know so much? Can it still tell what is the right time?" From what Xia Ying knew about her group of little guys, she didn't think that little guy had such a smart mind. They may be spiritual, but no matter what, they are just goo insects. I showed Zioba a picture of a person, and when Zioba saw that person, he knew it was the right time. A person? Who? Xia Ying was suspicious and asked. Yu Lingfeng said word for word, "Sanskrit sound." Xia Ying opened her eyes wide. "Fan Yin? But, didn't Fan Yin say he would never come back again?" Xia Ying then thought about it for a while. The news that Rong Ci was seriously ill and was hospitalized has probably spread everywhere, and the rumors are spreading. It is estimated that if it reaches Fan Yin's ears, it will become the news that Rong Ci is in danger and his life is not long. No matter how determined she was to leave at the beginning, she would definitely come back to see him again for the last time. Yu Lingfeng had expected this, and Fan Yin was currently entering and exiting the Shadow Hunters at will, which meant that Junde still had trust in Fan Yin, or that Fan Yin still had any value for him. Fan Yin is the only one among many masters who can get close to Junde, and only Fan Yin can find out Junde's secrets and weaknesses. What's more, Fan Yin still doesn't know the person or organization she treats loyally. She just treats her as a chess piece for use. After using her, she may be killed or imprisoned. And according to the extent of Fan Yin's deep love for Rong Ci, on this issue, whether Fan Yin will side with Rong Ci or Junde is self-evident. Yes, Fan Yin will definitely come back to see Rong Kai one last time. When Rong Kai wakes up and tells Fan Yin the truth, Fan Yin will definitely choose to help Rong Kai and us. After thinking about it, Xia Ying suddenly became excited and grabbed Yu Lingfeng's sleeve. Yu Lingfeng smiled and nodded, "That's right. If Fan Yin is willing to help, Zioba will definitely be able to use it." Aha! Xia Ying nodded again, her excitement palpable. Xia Ying stood up on tiptoes, kissed Yu Lingfeng the cheek, and said with a smile, "Yu Lingfeng, you are so great and so smart." Yu Lingfeng looked at Xia Ying with a doting look on her face and smiled very gently. When Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng returned to the castle, Grandpa Jun saw them coming back and said solemnly, "Qian Yanjiu is gone. I searched for him for a long time and couldn't find him." Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng looked at each other, both of them very confused. "Qian Yanjiu is missing? Where can that guy go?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1316. Chapter 1316. We will not discriminate against you. Have you looked for them all? Yu Lingfeng asked again. Grandpa Jun shrugged helplessly, "I've looked everywhere I can." "Where is 11 Ju?" Xia Ying looked around and saw no sign of 11 Ju. Normally, if Yu Lingfeng came back, 11 Ju would be the first to come out to greet him. But today it was a bit strange. Yu Lingfeng frowned. Hearing Xia Ying ask this, he also felt a little strange. Why hasn't he seen 11 Ju yet? 11 Ju just said he was going to the study, but he hasn't come out yet. He is probably lost in reading. Before Grandpa Jun finished speaking, 11 Ju had already come out, with a man behind him. The man had his head drooped, as if he was a child who had done something wrong and was afraid of being punished by his parents. 11 Ju's face was as black as carbon gray. When he looked at Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying, he actually showed some embarrassing emotions. Yu Lingfeng narrowed his eyes, knowing something was wrong. However, he seemed to think it might be fun. "I found Qian Yanjiu," 11 Ju said calmly and glanced at Qian Yanjiu. Xia Ying always felt that 11 Ju's look was meaningful and the hidden meaning seemed to be very complicated. Qian Yanjiu looked at 11 Ju with a doomsday look, giving 11 Ju crazy hints with his eyes, hoping that he could save some face for himself. Xia Ying was surprised to find that Qian Yanjiu's face was already red. "What kind of shameful thing did you do?" Xia Ying has become more and more interested, but 11 Ju has always been embarrassed to speak. "Forget it, you'd better say it yourself." 11 Ju decided not to take a trip into this muddy water. He was in a dilemma, so he simply stopped talking. Seeing that 11 Ju was not going to betray him anymore, Qian Yanjiu suddenly straightened his body and explained seriously, "I was just reading in the study and fell asleep and was discovered by 11 Ju. I have nothing to be embarrassed to say." As soon as Qian Yanjiu finished speaking, 11 Ju looked at him with wide eyes and an "are you kidding me" face. Yu Lingfeng probably guessed what happened when he saw 11 Ju's expression and Qian Yanjiu's look that told him he was lying. So he chuckled softly and left a meaningful sentence, "We will not discriminate against you. Besides, didn't you understand your brother before? Do you understand now?" The temperature of Qian Yanjiu's face rose sharply. Seeing Yu Lingfeng's implicit ridicule, his blood pressure soared with anger, but even so, he did not dare to say anything. Qian Yanjiu took a deep breath and decided to leave this place of right and wrong quickly before he was so angry that Yu Lingfeng died. Qian Yanjiu turned around and walked a few steps away. Thinking of Yu Lingfeng's flat face, he couldn't help turning his face sideways and replied sternly, "I'm different from him. I'm just curious. Don't think nonsense." Qian Yanjiu quickly turned around and left quickly. However, Qian Yanjiu could not explain his inexplicable guilt and the inexplicable emotion that suddenly ignited in his heart. And the blush on his face lingered for a long time. "Damn you Lingfeng, has he become a spirit?" Xia Ying hasn't reacted yet. What are they talking about? Why are you still involved with Qian Yin's? And what does Yu Lingfeng mean when he said he didn't understand his brother before, but now he understands. Why discriminate against him? And the suspicious red color on Qian Yanjiu's face. Hold the grass. Xia Ying suddenly had an epiphany, then she suppressed her blush and laughed loudly. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1317. Chapter 1317 I'm watching a movie. Qian Yanjiu, who had not walked far, heard the clear laughter coming from behind, and his face was so red that it looked like it was about to drip blood. Grass. He has never been so embarrassed. Grandpa Jun was still in a daze, not understanding what they were laughing at. Forget it, he probably couldn't understand the world of young people either. Yu Lingfeng patted Xia Ying's back gently, and 11 Ju also smiled secretly. Is it that funny? Yu Lingfeng wondered why Xia Ying smiled so heartily. You don't know how contemptuous and disdainful Qian Yanjiu's eyes were when he found out Qian Yin's was gay. Now, ha ha ha, he is actually hiding in the study and peeking at the comics that 11 Ju threw away, ha 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 ha, no, I feel so funny when I think about this contrast. If Qian Yin's knew about it, he would probably laugh out loud. Yu Lingfeng chuckled softly, he was still young at that time and didn't understand emotions. Now that he has grown up, he probably understands himself slowly. At that time, Qian Yanjiu never thought that he would have such a tendency. Qian Yanjiu may have felt embarrassed, so he never came out or went out to eat, and kept himself locked in the room. After dinner, Xia Ying was going to visit Qian Yanjiu, and try to persuade the child who had no love at all, telling him that this was a natural phenomenon, so that he should not feel ashamed or feel that he was different. Tisk, the more I think about it, the more I feel like a mama-san. Xia Ying knocked on the door and said, Qian Yanjiu, open the door. I have something to tell you. No one answered her, but Xia Ying seemed to hear some strange sound. Xia Ying put her ear against the door. Before she could hear what the sound was, the sound disappeared, and then the door was opened. Xia Ying staggered and almost fell into Qian Yanjiu's arms. Qian Yanjiu's first reaction was not to catch Xia Ying in fear of her falling, but to avoid her, with an obvious look of disgust on her face and to keep strangers away. Xia Ying saw all this. Huh, does this guy want to be so obviously gay? What do you want from me? Qian Yanjiu looked at Xia Ying with a cold face. Xia Ying looked inside the room curiously for a while, wondering what the sound was. What were you doing just now? Why did I seem to hear something? Qian Yanjiu raised his eyebrows and moved his lips. He originally wanted to say something to cover up the past, but then he thought, the more he avoids taboos, the more these people will seize on this to laugh at him. In the future, do you still want his face? He wanted to hang out in the Tao, so Qian Yanjiu decided that the worst thing he could do was be a man and admit it openly. I'm watching a movie. Watch a movie. Xia Ying was surprised. This guy said that when he was watching the movie, his face looked serious, which even gave people the illusion that he was promoting the core values of socialism. Those who didn't know thought he was watching some science and education program, but it turned out that he was watching a movie. That kind of movie. Xia Ying frowned tightly, with a look of disbelief on her face. Qian Yanjiu curled his lips. Yes, a man and a woman, fighting without clothes. That's enough for you, stop talking. Xia Ying felt that the topic was getting more and more inappropriate, and then she quickly reached out to stop it. Why are you looking at this kind of thing? Qian Yanjiu looked indifferent. I just want to see if I really have no feelings for the opposite sex. The results of it? Xia Ying asked, staring at Qian Yanjiu's unruffled face. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1318. Chapter 1318 My sexual orientation is normal. As soon as Xia Ying finished speaking, she suddenly felt that she had asked the wrong question. Wasn't Jian Yanjiu's performance just obvious enough? This guy is absolutely, completely gay. While Xia Ying was still dazed, Jian Yanjiu's face drooped and he glanced at Xia Ying expressionlessly. What do you want to say? Xia Ying frowned, suddenly feeling that something was wrong with Jian Yanjiu's expression. Jian Yanjiu curled his lips, let out a soft chuckle, and then said, compared with the male body, I still feel that the female body is more attractive to me, so I am sorry to disappoint you. I'm not gay, my sexual orientation is normal. Jian Yanjiu shrugged, stared at Xia Ying and said. Xia Ying met his gaze dubiously and asked, really? Why does she not believe it so much? Actually, this is quite normal, there is no abnormal sexual orientation, it's all innate and normal. Stop your brainwashing. Jian Yanjiu smiled disdainfully, I just peeked at the comic out of curiosity, and it happened to be discovered by 11 Ju. Since I haven't come into contact with it before, it was just out of curiosity. You guys are thinking too much. Also yes, I just want to know why Jianyins likes this kind of thing. Then what? Xia Ying suddenly understood something. So, Jian Yanjiu actually doesn't hate Jianyins that much in his heart. He even wants to go and understand his world in depth. Xia Ying felt a warm current flowing through her heart. The longer she spent time with him, the more she realized that the cold and arrogant child in front of her was actually very soft at heart. Then I still think Jianyins is abnormal and unreasonable. After Jian Yanjiu finished speaking, he turned around and sat on his sofa chair, with his arms folded in an air of arrogance. Jianyins used to like to collect so-called figurines, which Jian Yanjiu couldn't understand at all. They looked like girls' toys. Later, he found that he was looking at some inexplicable things. Finally, he knew that he liked them. She fell in love with a man, 11 Ju. Jian Yanjiu said that his worldview has been refreshed by Jianyins. Ah! This is not what Xia Ying wants to hear at all. Xia Ying also wants to say something to educate Jian Yanjiu. Jian Yanjiu may have realized something. Before Xia Ying could speak, just the moment she opened her mouth, Xia Ying what he was about to say was interrupted. Come on, stop brainwashing me. I won't accept anything that others say. Jian Yanjiu glanced at Xia Ying coldly again. Also, I found that you people are really annoying. What? Xia Ying was completely irritated by Jian Yanjiu. Why are you so blind-eyed, kid? I obviously care about you. I don't need your false concern. Jian Yanjiu interrupted again coldly. Hey, the dog bit Lu Dongbin. After Xia Ying finished speaking, she left angrily. Jian Yanjiu glanced at Xia Ying's leaving figure, raised one eyebrow upward, his eyes darkened a bit, and muttered, Who is the dog biting? What hole? Is she scolding him? Jian Yanjiu scratched his hair, feeling a little irritated, then turned around and picked up his mobile phone, recalling what Xia Ying just said, and then prepared to search what it meant. These people really want to talk to each other well, right? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1319. Chapter 1319 Her former appearance. Late at night, the hospital was quiet, and there were few people walking in the corridor. After checking the last ward, the nurse on duty gently closed the door and left. Before closing the door, I couldn't help but secretly glance at the man on the hospital bed with his eyes closed and his sleeping face handsome, like a prince. He has been in a coma for 5 days, with no sign of waking up, and his heart is still very weak. The girl who had been by his bedside for the past few days had a bad cold this afternoon because her body was too heavy, and she couldn't bear it and was afraid of infecting him, so she went back to rest. So now in the ward, only the prince was still sleeping quietly. Not long after the nurse left, there was a sudden rustling sound outside the window. Then, the curtains were opened, and a girl in black walked gracefully. Her body was so light that even when she climbed through the window and landed on the ground, she didn't make any noise. The girl's face was fascinated by the man on the hospital bed the moment she came in. She kept staring at him, unwilling to look away. The girl felt that her eyes suddenly became very hot, and after a while, 2 strings of crystal clear tears fell down. The girl softly called his name in the dark, walked towards him, sat in front of his bed, and looked at him motionless. She had been away from him for so long, and how many times she couldn't help but want to come see him, but she still forced herself not to come. Because she knew that if she came, she would never be able to leave after seeing Rongsi's intoxicating eyebrows. So she left for so long and never came back, even secretly, to see Rongsi once. She thought that as time went by, Rongsi would forget her, or maybe she would bury her deeply in her heart and fall in love with another woman with a beautiful smile. But what she didn't expect was that she didn't wait for this day. What she waited for was the sad news that Rongsi was critically ill and would die soon. Thinking of this, Fanyan fell into endless regret and self-blame. She might never hear Rongsi call her Fanyan again, and never see Rongsi's gentle eyebrows again. Fanyan looked at the heart measuring machine on the side. She didn't understand medicine, but she could see clearly. The heartbeat displayed on the instrument was very weak, so weak that it seemed that it would become a straight line in the next second. Fanyan held Rongsi's hand, pressed his forehead against Rongsi's hand, and sobbed silently in the darkness. In fact, she wanted to come on the first day when Rongsi was hospitalized. But she saw another girl in Rongsi's ward, another girl who, like her, had deep love for Rongsi in her eyes. She retreated. She had neither the courage nor the means to come in. She came every day on the second day and the third day, and the girl was also there every day. Until today, when she was not here, Fanyan dared to come in and take a good look at Rongsi, her former Rongsi. Fanyan was shedding tears silently in the darkness. Suddenly, she seemed to feel Rongsi's fingers move, touch her face, and stroke it gently, with unbearable love and caress. Fanyan was stunned for a moment and raised his head suddenly. Before he could see anything clearly, his lips were blocked in the next second. Immediately, the back of the head was controlled by a pair of strong hands, prying open the teeth and deepening the kiss. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1320. Chapter 1320 There is no cure. Sanskrit, do you love me? Fanyan looked at Rongsi's cold and determined back, not daring to look at his current expression. She just held onto the quilt with both hands, her heartbeat began to be disordered, and the unfriendly memories in her mind kept flashing, and Fanyan felt that there was something in her heart. I couldn't bear it, and even felt a little dizzy, and my body was shaking. Rongsi was completely discouraged without waiting for an answer. Why were you not even willing to lie to him? Say that you love him, even if it's not true, even if you don't love him that much, wouldn't it make him feel better? After all, he is still a patient, a dying patient. Rongsi, it's time for me to go. Fanyan got off the hospital bed, walking a little staggeringly, and his steps were not steady. She had to go back immediately, her head hurt so much that she couldn't stay any longer. Rongsi turned his head and looked at Fanyan. Seeing that she was about to leave, Rongsi immediately got out of bed and held her arm. Then, Rongsi suddenly noticed that Fanyan's body was breaking out in cold sweat. Rongsi opened his eyes wide in confusion. The next second, Fanyan fell into his arms as softly as a bone. Sangin, what's wrong with you? Rongsi's expression immediately changed. He hugged Fan Yin's hand and was trembling because of fear. Take me there. Fan Yin had already fainted before he finished speaking. Rong Ci panicked. He definitely couldn't take Fan Yin out at this moment. The hospital's cameras would capture it, and Jun De would also know that Fan Yin came to see him, so their plan would be impossible to proceed. Rong Ci called Yu Lingfeng. Not long after, the hospital's camera system suddenly collapsed and the power supply was cut off. Immediately afterwards, Yu Lingfeng and Xia Yingzihu appeared in the ward. After seeing the scene in front of them, they left the hospital with their group without asking any questions. Because it was late at night, there was no one in the hospital at the moment, and the camera system and power supply suddenly broke down. Everyone was checking what happened. The nurses on duty were also checking ward after ward, for fear that during this period something unexpected happened in time. Yu Lingfeng and the others took advantage of the chaos and quickly left the hospital. On the way, Rong Ci was almost going crazy with anxiety. He hugged Fan Yin in his arms, his eyes were red, for fear that something might happen to Fan Yin. Xia Ying was driving in front, while 11 Ju was checking Fan Yin. Zihu's brows furrowed more and more, and finally he sighed. 11 Ju's behavior frightened Rong Ci. What's wrong with her? What happened to my Sanskrit? She is sick. What disease? How to treat it? It's a very rare disease, and it's hard to say. There is currently no way to cure it. 11 Ju continued, she can only rely on medicine to maintain a normal life. In the later stages, medicine will not have much effect. How is it possible? Even cancer can be cured now, why can't Sanskrit's disease be cured? The disease of Sanskrit was brought to her by the backlash of the poisonous insects, and there is almost no cure. 11 Ju's words made Rong Ci completely despair. There is no cure? Just wait to die? Fan Yin finally returned to him, and now you tell him that Fan Yin is going to die soon? Rong Ci couldn't accept it. He simply couldn't imagine how he could continue his life without Sanskrit. Aren't you very powerful? You must have a way to save my Sanskrit, right? Rong Ci looked at Yu Lingfeng with red eyes. End of this chapter.